Hello and welcome to another edition of East Vethnia. So we're doing something unusual. You're getting two posts in 1 week, but that's because there has been some news this week that I think might turn out to be fairly important, and you might already have guessed what it is. And that was the surprise announcement that the United States was lifting all sanctions against the members of the ruling party in Republika Srpska, the entity that occupies 49% of the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So this includes Milorad Dodik, the recently removed president of Republika Srpska, and 48 other people from his party. So this was interpreted as a great victory on the part of Dodik and his associates. Dodik gave a statement to the press in which he said that he considered himself to have been, I believe he said, morally rehabilitated, which is an interesting statement in itself. And what he meant by that, we're going to have to leave that to the psychologists. But what's interesting in it for us is that this is basically the first move by the Trump administration to try to make a mark, to try to create its own policy in the Balkans. I mean, you might say that its first move was this agreement between Serbia and Kosovo that was signed in 2000, but that was really kind of a performative act. There wasn't a lot of content to the agreement, and you'll notice that if you look at the agreement, that great care was taken that nothing should be in there that would create any obligations for the United States. So that was pretty much a publicity move. We can ignore that. This is the first move by Trump in Southeast Europe, in the Balkans, and it gives a couple of signs for the future. One of the signs for the future that we can see is that it was done by surprise. So this was done without consulting or informing the European Union or coordinating with European policy. In fact, what was done goes very much against European policy. And I think it was also done without consultation and without coordination with any of the other states in the region, including the ones directly involved in Bosnia and Herzegovina itself, and also Croatia and Serbia. So, what is in the deal? Well, we don't really know a lot of detail, and the United States State Department has not really been very forthcoming. There is one statement that the State Department made. I will put a link to it in the text below this video, but it doesn't really say much. Basically, what it says is that this is in consideration for the Parliament of Republika Srpska withdrawing its objection to several laws that had been recommended by the High Representative. So basically, the Parliament of Republika Srpska did what the High Representative wanted. Is there anything more in there? We don't really know. Does it mark the political rehabilitation of Dodik? That doesn't depend on the United States. That depends most of all on the courts in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we don't know what will happen there. In a sense, it might not matter much what the content of the deal is, because any deal that Dodik makes, he is unlikely to keep. He is looking out for himself and his own benefit rather than for any entity that he represents or the terms of any agreement. But we can also ask the question, what led to the agreement? And it seems, I will link to another article below here, it seems that this is most closely connected to a very intensive and very expensive lobbying campaign by Republika Srpska in the United States. And the strategy of this lobbying campaign was to target people in the immediate inner circle of Donald Trump. And several of those individuals are named. Some of them are people who Trump himself has sent in various roles to the region. But there's another really interesting indicative moment in this, and that is that earlier this week, the last thing that I posted on this website was an analysis of a text by Roger Stone, the political campaign consultant who had first his sentence commuted and then got a pardon for Trump for his involvement in the interference on the part of Russia um, in in elections in the United States. And that text sort of made an ideological argument as to why the United States ought to be supporting Serbian policy in the region generally and Alexander Vucic in particular. And I think it's this text that provides a trace to the ideological context in which this surprise decision was taken by the United States. So the first ideological context is, of course, that as long as Trump has been president, the United States has been seeking increasingly to harmonize its policy in the international arena with the policy of Russia. Russia had been the principal sponsor of Milorad Dodik in Republika Srpska. So this is one element of that coordination. But there is something else going on here too, because there is a resonance with the main ideological points that are made by Dodik and his supporters, and several of the ideological points that animate the American right wing currently in power in terms of international policy. And one of them, and you see a clear indication from this in the text by Roger Stone, is fear of Islam, of Muslim people, of the influence of Muslims in the world. In that text by Roger Stone, he describes the period of occupation of institutions in Kosovo by the Serbian regime after 1989. He calls that a period of religious liberty for Christians in Kosovo, and this resonates with another of the points. Aside from ordinary racism that motivates the right wing in the United States. And that is the religious and racial motivation. So if you want to talk about who is considered to be oppressed people in the world by the American right wing, there are two groups that they identify. One, interestingly enough, is whites from South Africa, who are apparently set to become a privileged group in terms of immigration and refugee status in the United States under Trump. And the other is the belief that Christians are oppressed throughout the world and that there is a need to liberate them. So this, I think, contributes to a kind of resonance, pushing the right wing in the United States to support for some of the points made by nationalists in Serbia and among ethnic Serbian people outside of Serbia. What will this agreement mean for the future? This also is difficult to predict, and it's unknown. There is not any kind of certain impact on policy in the region or on the political fate of Dodik and his party in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is a matter that is up to the courts in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We can speculate that there might be political pressure on the courts that we don't know. There's also been some speculation that this effort, if it's true, that it's part of a general effort to favor people of Christian religion in the world, then this might be coordinated with an effort to try to do another carve up of territory, remaking the Dayton Agreement in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, for example, to take what some of the Croatian nationalists in Bosnia and Herzegovina have been arguing for, and that is the creation of a third entity. One thing that we do know, however, is that all of the states in the region are states that are relatively less powerful in the world, and you've seen this on the part even of more powerful states. There is a motivation to try to pacify, to try to mollify, to try to satisfy the United States, regardless of who is holding political power in the United States. People give golden things to Donald Trump, and oh my God, in South Korea, I don't know whether you saw that they organized a hamburger and ketchup banquet for him with all of that fabulous Korean cuisine that they have. But another point. But Getting back to the main point, until now, the United States has basically kept out of pushing unique interests for this administration in the Balkans. Most of what Trump has done, most of the time, has been to follow the foreign policy direction that was set by Barack Obama and by Joe Biden before him. So right now, when they're making their first move, you see the United States showing what side they are on in the various relations of the region. Um, I would say that the sign is not a good sign. And if we want to put this in the context of other political events in the region, um, we can also say that the United States is showing once again in its projection of global power that it's adopting a policy in which it is really not very strongly bothered by genocide. And this is something that might be worrying to us. So I wanted to take a moment to say a little bit about this move and to try to explain some of what is behind it. What's happening next, we don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. if it is a sign of a further movement, then the times that come will be very interesting in a bad way. Thank you for your time and attention.